Good evening again. Pertaining to the previous video mentioning my visits to a Marine recruiting office in Bradenton back in 1993. As I said, there was a day that I walked in. A young man was signing a recruiting contract. In retrospect, because I didn't know the accusation back then, the indication of a bruised eye had been the secret medical malpractice accusation from '81. Well, on another day I walked in kind of irritated. Like I said, the particular gunnery sergeant that I talked to reneged about giving me back my notes. And on another day I traveled to Bradenton and I was collecting pocket change. Sometimes I went door to door to get enough money to survive by asking people if they might have 50 cents or $1 I could use for bus fare. Always polite, And on one of those days, I stopped back into the recruiting office in Cortez, and I just kind of irritatedly said to the same gunnery sergeant, "Is it appropriate that I report back in here?" And he just shook his head and said a terse, "No." Okay, so I walked away. But by 1995, I was out on. I was still being forced to be. Homeless because of the loud traffic broadcasting disruption. And by then, I still didn't even know that there was any such thing as family involvement about it. I didn't know what was happening, but there was a lot of friendly commenting and awareness by people otherwise, and so I trusted, and I had to adjust to the various circumstances. And one of the circumstances was in '95, that I did more good studying on behalf of our nation's security, on behalf of our people, while I was temporarily living in the Bay Pines VA Center. There were some, of course, that didn't expect, I dropped my pen accidentally. There were some that didn't expect that I would proceed past Bay Pines, actually. But it happened, and apparently what happened before I left Bay Pines is that there was some kind of an injection. Maybe it was a particular TB test, I don't know, that was included some kind of chemical or whatever to react against alcohol the next time I would have a drink after leaving. But anyway, that's a different story. I decided that after I left Bay Pines in early '95, that I would travel to Orlando and visit the Navy Investigative Service there. That I had a lot of good work. It's all amateur kind of work. There wasn't anything secret about it. But I think that there was a lot of good evidence on behalf of that might be important for our nation. And so I stopped into the N.I.S. office in Orlando, right near across the street from what used to be the Recruit Training Command. And as I neared the building became active. The interference at me activated into the air conditioning system. I could hear them in the sound of the building as I neared. But I decided, what the heck, I'll just go in anyway. And so I went up, I forget what floor it was on, second or third or fourth, whatever. And I talked to a really pretty young woman. There wasn't anyone there wearing uniforms. Everyone was wearing civilian clothes, but it was a U.S. Navy office. And she greeted me nicely and accepted some of my notes that I gave. And asked me to come back on Friday and that they were going to see what they might be able to help me about. And so, but when I returned, she wasn't there. And the man talked to me, was very abrupt, and he basically said, this isn't a social service advance. And so I just basically concluded my visit and proceeded back away until I traveled on a Greyhound. I ended up back in Sarasota probably about a week after. So anyway, I'm just remembering that by the time I was back in Sarasota, I ended up going through a real loudly blitzed sound. There was so much nuclear war threat in the traffic broadcasting around me. It was amazing, and they were using really strange orchestra also. When I was, there was some days where I was getting off the effect of whatever had been done into me across from Midtown Plaza. And the blaring from the traffic, there was orchestra and the undercar sound, and they were blaring nuclear war threat. Some of them were alleging being from Bay Pines. And I gradually recovered. and I ended up deciding to spend nights out on Siesta Beach. And what started to happen then is when I got to the beach area, and I just greet nice ladies as they pass by, some guys started in the traffic sound loud, saying Marines interference, loud in the traffic sound, sometimes on the loud on stereos. And anytime I'm in the presence of any, they start interrupting me when I be trying to just nicely talk to people. And that's something that continued through the years after. But it isn't something that I appreciated, and it's actually an interference. So anyway, as I speak, they'd be just trying to change my hat into looking like a USMC hat anyway. Because they are a very arrogant corruption, and of course they are a power. So anyway, it wasn't anything I agreed about, and they wouldn't help me about anything. I ended up having to sit out. I spent probably around 100 nights out on Siesta Key, every night alone. I didn't bother anyone, and until I ended up moving back to the Bee Ridge area where I'd been before I went to the VA. And that sequence, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this, but the sequence from when I think a couple of civilian citizens then had been concerned, and they thought that I was going to get help if I went to a Marine office. And that was in probably about June of '93. And then there was some months through the rest of '93 of reporting to traveling to Bradenton a number of times, to the Marine office in Bradenton. And then by '95, after working on more studies that I consider were important, some good thinking, good work, reported to a Navy office that months after, there I was still out on the roadside without any assistance about anything that would have anything to do with paperwork, and hearing disruptive men getting into the traffic sound, arrogantly resenting if there be any nice ladies nearby, again continuing the Marine argument. And I just don't agree. I don't agree about it. They're still just causing an endless disruption. And people need to be more aware that they include men that are of a particular bad variety of resistant gays that are conspiring against our own people instead. Now, I'm hoping that isn't true elsewhere, except for the way a particular corruption involving a former family surrounds me with their capability because of the operation. Hopefully anywhere else that they're all just being loyal, and that they're wanting there to be peace, instead of others wanting to rabble-rouse and cause a wider war about the strife in Ukraine. I'm still hoping that there's going to be peace instead. And I guess that's about all for now. Again, I hope everyone's having a good weekend, and have a good evening.